Three reasons led us to leave ECOWAS. In agreement, three reasons. The first reason is security. ECOWAS threatens Niger with armed military aggression. We cannot allow, we cannot bear on our conscience the weight of the massacre of Nigerians. The second reason is moral and ethics. The Nigerian people were deprived of all. The minimum pharmaceutical product, the minimum vital electrical energy. Should we continue to accept that Nigerians die because we are in an organization which no longer corresponds to reality since 1991? When we introduced a chapter of 6G, exactly, that they call the Declaration of Political Principles, must we allow Nigerians to continue to die, to allow certain individuals to satisfy their will, or their calculation, or their political desire? No. So, it is this second reason, ethics and moral, which led us to what we did within the framework of the AES. And the third and last reason is of an economic order. Since it was the will of the founding fathers, should we continue to remain in an ECOWAS where we are under total economic embargo, economic, which is the initial objectives of ECOWAS, monetary embargo, where our deposits at the BCAO are confiscated? In 2023, could we continue to stay in this organization? We have decided it is time to get out of this organization, from which the state should have left in 1991, after the Bull speech, because it was from there that France has taken control of our organization, and which no longer responded to the spirit initiated before leading to the creation of ECOWAS. On May 28, 1975 Accord, here are the three fundamental reasons which led us, the AES member countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, to leave this organization, to trace our voice and trace our destiny together with our people and Africans and sincere partners. Africa, wake up. Africa, rise up. Africa without borders. And break the chain of neo-colonialism. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Hello, Mr. President, and thank you for accepting this invitation a few days after the withdrawal of the state from ECOWAS. During the exchange, we will certainly discuss the exit of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS, but also we will address some subjects, current events, both nationally and internationally. And to begin this exclusive interview, this first question, Mr. President, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger took the historic decision on January 28, 2024 to leave ECOWAS. Mr. President, how did we come to this break with our ancient community? Hello, Mr. Abdoulaye. Thank you for the opportunity, one more time, for us to address not only the people of Niger, but also the people of the Alliance of Sahel States and Africans in general. I would like to take advantage of this interview to have a pious thought for our martyrs, the martyrs of terrorism. Terrorism that is not only the one we are familiar with weapons on the ground, killing soldiers as well as civilians, but terrorism of organization as well and foreign states. We have a stinking thought for this martyr, whether civilian or military. The martyr of Niger, the part of the alliance of Sahel states, welcomes them.
Qu'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala les accueille dans son paradis Firdaus et qu'il leur accorde sa rahma.
To answer your questions, it is important to remember, because as the Quran says, the reminder saves the soul. What is the ECOWAS? Or what was the ECOWAS? Because for us, from a certain date, the ECOWAS had ceased to exist. Unfortunately, perhaps, it was the awareness that had been lacking to face the evidence and take the decisions that were imposed, or who imposed it. We left the ECOWAS because ECOWAS or ECOWAS was no longer the ECOWAS of the founding fathers. I will first take this opportunity to make a historical reminder. As I said, created on May 28, 1975, May 28, 1975, the ECOWAS had purely economic objectives and for the prosperity of the peoples. The ECOWAS had fundamental principles. I would therefore like to mention a few, in particular, the equality and independence of the member states, solidarity and collective self-sufficiency, non-aggression, human rights, among others. This West African community created in 1975 with founders Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, Nigeria. I purposely ended with Nigeria, among others. Okay, if you want me to quote the heads of state at the time, from Niger, it was Kuti. From Mali, it was Musa Traoré. From Burkina Faso was Abubakar Sango Lamizana. From Togo was Nyasinde Yadima. And from Benin was Mathieu Kirikou. And from Nigeria, it's Yakubu Gowon. I said it well, it's Yakubu Gowon. Nigeria was coming out of a devastating civil war that had left more than 2 million dead, 3 million refugees, 5 million displaced. And it's in this context that these brothers had to help the Nigerians to get back on its feet, to reorganize itself, to regain its unity between the Biafra's Republic and the Republic of Nigeria. That the heads of states, yes, that I had mentioned, had the idea of creating the ECOWAS with as a principle what I had just mentioned, and with an equally fundamental objectives which is the economy and the prosperity of the peoples. People said that Nigeria was the locomotive. Nigeria was not the locomotive of the West African community at the creation since. I have just given you a little overview of what Nigeria was like at the end of the Civil War, 4 years after the catastrophic Civil War. And who was behind that Civil War, which had almost separated Nigeria into two republics? It was France. If people have short memory, in Niger, we do not have these short memories. I said before, answering your questions, we must make this reminder. It is very important. The ECOWAS was for the people, for purely economic purposes. We must also make it real so that people understand what happened. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall was fallen. It was the end, or the supposed end, of the Cold War between the two blocs that you know. 7 or 8 months after the fall of the Berlin Wall, remember the Ball meeting, what was called the famous Bull speech. It was from 19 to 21 June 1990, where Mitterrand, a reminder to Africans, 35 heads of states, that it is no longer the famous slogan, friendship, cooperation. It is from now on democracy, which is the source of development for you, the African countries, that are a source of prosperity for you, African countries. But if Mitterrand has made this announcement, it was because Mitterrand at the time believes he has found new partners to the countries of the East. Unacknowledge the balkanization of our major state. The objective was to resurrect the instincts that the supposed dictators were able to resist willingly. And this was the objective, to bring the African states to what had been called the multi-party system. And you remember, from 19 to 21 June 1990, the speech of the Bull before 35 heads of states. You remember the succession of 90 at the end of 90 to 91 of the multi-party national conference that were taking place in all the states that were French-speaking. We ended up with countries with less than 10 million inhabitants, but with more than 200 parties. It was the avowed objective to weaken our state. This objective, thank God, has not been achieved. The state, it is true, in spite of the multipartism, where numerous parties, 100 to 200, have been able to keep a certain balance. But in misery and the most total politicization, we were in this context when the objectives was not achieved. Remember, in 1994, all the countries using the CFA franc were met with 100% devaluation. These are events, they are facts that must be proved to understand the evolution of what we are experiencing today. So, in relation to that, I thought I would remind you to put things in context, to come back to your question. On July 26, we put an end to the regime which executed the letter of the master. We said that we have done enough for the master. It is time that we do for the good of our people. France always, as a habit, have used African countries, precisely certain ECOWAS countries, to initiate an aggression, a war to supposedly restore Bazoum to power. The consequences of this action are known. It was on the 30th of June, in the Abuja meeting, where it was decided 4 days after the coup d'etat, without any consultation, and contrary to the rules of ECOWAS, there was a question of putting a total embargo on Nigerian people. The embargo, we know, had the consequences not only for the Nigerian people, but for all the people of ECOWAS, even if the people do not want to recognize this evidence. We have gone through all the phases so that the embargo can be lifted, to re-engage in dialogue, which was supposed to be the first step, which corresponds to one of the principles of ECOWAS agreement. You have seen the coming and going of ECOWAS delegations, traditional leaders, and any other authorities to renew the dialogue. The sacrifice that we have made, not only in terms of the duration of the transition, in terms of timeline of the transition, even if some people don't know, but we let them know. Those who came to us in the name of the West African community, or in the name of their own country, or on their own initiative, know the sacrifice we made to ensure that this suffering to which today, July 28, 2 days after the coup d'etat, I had ordered to release the family of Bazoum. He had asked for his family to stay with him. And as I said, at our last meeting, we agreed the duration of the transition. And you remember, on December 8, 2 days before the meeting of December 10 in Abuja, I was in Togo, in Lomé, doing the interview with His Excellency Foué. I had said that Niger is willing to any length of time that is deemed necessary to be the duration that will allow the embargo on our country to be lifted. And you remember, at the end of his meeting and before this meeting, President Macron had come out 3 weeks before to say that the embargo against Niger will not be lifted as long as Bazoum is young for us, and from then on. And I said it during our meeting, since at the end of the meeting, it was the main condition of the state puppet of ECOWAS. Free Bazoum or nothing. You remember the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria had gone to London to say it on the BBC that if they want the embargo lifted, they have no other choice than to release Bazoum. But I remind you that Yusuf Tamaruganu does not decide on the politics. Diplomacy of Niger, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, and not Niger. He is not the Minister of Foreign Affairs of ECOWAS, and he cannot, with a sense of modesty or courtesy, decide what must be applied to the Nigerian people. To answer your question exactly, yes, Mr. President. 3 reasons led us to leave ECOWAS. In agreement, 3 reasons. The first reason is security. ECOWAS threatens Niger with armed military aggression. We cannot allow, we cannot bear on our conscience the weight of the massacre of Nigerians. The second reason is moral and ethics. The Nigerian people were deprived of all. The minimum pharmaceutical product, the minimum vital electrical energy. Should we continue to accept that Nigerians die because we are in an organization which no longer corresponds to reality since 1991, when we introduced a chapter of 6G, exactly, that they call the Declaration of Political Principles? Must we allow Nigerians to continue to die, to allow certain individuals to satisfy their will, or their calculation, or their political desire? No. So, it is this second reason, ethics and moral, which led us to what we did within the framework of the AES. And the third and last reason is of an economic order. Since it was the will of the founding fathers, should we continue to remain in an ECOWAS where we are under total economic embargo, economic, which is the initial objectives of ECOWAS, monetary embargo, where our deposits at the BCAO are confiscated in 2023. Could we continue to stay in this organization? We have decided it is time to get out of this organization, from which the state should have left in 1991, after the Bull speech, because it was from there that France has taken control of our organization, and which no longer responded to the spirit initiated before leading to the creation of ECOWAS. On May 28, 1975 Accord, here are the 3 fundamental reasons which led us the AES member countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, to leave this organization, to trace our voice and trace our destiny together with our people and Africans and sincere partners. Mr. President, by leaving ECOWAS, our countries have certainly anticipated the consequences of this decision in terms of the free movement of goods and people, in terms of the stay of our compatriots in the ECOWAS area. Finally, in economic and political terms, what can we do? You know, I have said ECOWAS was created on May 28, 1975. With our state independent on May 28, 1975 or before. Did our people exist? Or had they started to exist before 1975? Yes or no? Millennia. In terms of the movement of people, remember, the majority of ECOWAS states acquire their independence in 1960. But from 1960 to 1975, it is at least 15 years. Take just this small period of time, 15 years that this population lived together. What inhabited before independence? Since independence was a consequence of colonization. Before colonization, the African people lived together. To take the example of Nigeria, from Bono to Kebbi, it was the same families. Even those who are from the south would think they came from elsewhere, were in Niger more than 200 years ago. There are traces. So these are peoples who have always evolved. Without taking into account borders, since there were no borders. Know that before the colonial penetration, we even stopped the way of managing states in the form of empires. The kingdom was grouped to constitute the great empires. We were, for the case of Niger particularly, in the management of states as Sultan. Remember that we were talking about the Sultan of Bono, Sultan of Kazina, Sultan of Gobi, and the Empire of Sokoto, who was also a Sultan, since Usman Fodio is a figure of the Islamic religion. That's what people don't know. So our people were mixed. Take the North Benin. It was the old Songhai Empire. We are not ignorant or illiterate of history. These people have cohabited. The West African community is how many states at the present time? 15. Africa is how many states? 54. Are there no Nigerians in the other countries of Africa? How do they live? Do they not move? Do they not find their livelihood in these other countries that are not ECOWAS countries? Of course, yes. And even among the ECOWAS countries. What are these most illustrious countries to wage war on Niger? Who are they? It is Tinubu from Nigeria. It is Tolang from Benin. It is Ouattara from Côte d'Ivoire. And Macky Sall from Senegal. until a certain point in time, and I will tell you why until a certain time. So as far as the free movement of people and wealth, don't worry, Africans have circulated. It's part of human nature. Mobility. No colonial border can stop human beings in their migratory instincts. The people will continue because they are above selfish, individualistic head of state. The people are matured people who understand the meaning of history because they have history within them. They know the relationship that had existed and that exists between them and their brothers in the alliance of Sahel states. On the economic and political level, what was the rate of trade between the ECOWAS state? You would tell me that it is marginal, less than 4%. For the most optimistic, we say 5 to 6%. Tell me a single ECOWAS country that does not import the minimum, which is food. A single state, it is enough for the Indians to decide to no longer allow the exportation of rice. All the states of ECOWAS find themselves on the ground trying to find out how they are going to go to feed their own people. This is not a characteristic specific to the state of the alliance of Sahel states. Take one by one all these states that want to make war on us and study their economy to see the dependence of the latter on the other organizations. But they are not organizations, and they are not organizations within the framework of the ECOWAS. We all import from India, China, the United States, Pakistan, Turkey. All goods, in general, we import within countries is not of ECOWAS, but of other structures. Since what I am saying, the world is a planetary village. This is obvious, whether the ECOWAS countries recognize it or not agree with it. As far as the political field is concerned, rest assured that through the alliance of Sahel states that people seems to despise, ridicule, to the point of considering that it is a phantom alliance. But how did they know that it is a phantom alliance? If they had not seen it, it is an alliance. It is physical, and the physical and reality cannot be a ghost. It's the ghost who sees the ghost. Humans sees humans. Humans can, at the limit, see ghosts, but that's God who decides. But don't worry, in the political field, no one will use Niger or the alliance of Sahel states to satisfy their personal desire. Don't worry, Tinubu wants to have a popular base through the martyrdom of the Nigerian people. But to martyr the Nigerian people is to martyr the Bodali people. of Nigeria, and I remain convinced that the borderline people of Nigeria will not let them pass. Talon wants to have a second or third mandate through his rigor or his zeal vis-à-vis the AES or Niger particularly by closing the border under the master's injunction. But Talon is mistaken. If he has to serve the Beninese people, let him serve them. And it is through this that the Beninese people will decide to grant him third mandate. That is to say, what he has done so far merits a third mandate. Ouattara wants to hand over the reign or do a fourth term. Yes, through this he must prove to the master that he is trustworthy. Niger is an independent country. Niger is a country, kingdom, empire, and sultan. I said it thousands of years ago. It is not through Niger that people would satisfy their political destiny. Macky Sall wanted a third mandate. The Senegalese people has shown once again their political maturity. To say that there will be no third mandate, we do not have a short memory. Even if we are not in Senegal, we follow evolution in the face of the obvious. Macky Sall has reluctantly given up this desire to serve a third mandate and reluctantly allowed the list to be opened, allowed candidates to be selected, and set the election for when. You recall the date quite, 25th, and you remember the release less than a week ago. And what he does, the airport, where are we now? But in the meantime, he has softened his position. When the prospect that could lead to the third term were vanished through the mobilization of the Senegalese people. So rest assured that the countries of the alliance of the Sahel states know what their priorities are. And these are priorities for the good of their people. Without calculation, without any intention whatsoever to abuse or take advantage of the support of the people. This is what I can answer you in relation to this free movement of people, in relation to the economic and political character. Mr. President, finally, on the subject of ECOWAS, now that we have left this organization, what prospects are really available to us? But our prospects can only be better. Let us want to win ourselves by remaining in the field. ECOWAS, I recall, yes, they acknowledge root cause that have led our state to the situation we have found ourselves in. Found with terrorism activated, first imported, activated, and manipulated. We know who are behind these terrorist movements. Whether it is the terrorists who are on the ground with weapons, and whether it is the terrorist states that want, as I have just said, to achieve multiple objectives through what they have done in the country of the alliance of Sahel states. We are an alliance that has a clear vision. We left ECOWAS. It is not under a blow. We left ECOWAS to strengthen this alliance because we have a clear vision of what can lead our people towards the prosperity to which they have always aspired from their leaders to lead them. The AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, had as its initial objective, and it still has, and it is in the process of achieving success, to bring security back to our troubled space, troubled so that our riches can be lost. Inshallah, we are going to succeed in this first phase, and we are on the verge of succeeding in it. Everyone can appreciate the result obtained. The second would be, and we are on this good governance across all the states. You have noticed that the battle horse that we have mounted is that of good governance. Governance where the resources of the countries of the Alliance of Sahel States will benefit the people of the Alliance of Sahel States. It is an oath which translates into facts. And if you have noticed, it is Niger. It is one case, and it's physical. It's real in Burkina Faso as in Mali. Also, it is physical and it is real. After this economic prosperity, we must find together what are the mechanisms which allow us to strengthen exchanges within our alliance, whether monetary exchange and any other type of exchange, so that this zone of the Alliance of Sahel States is indeed, as we wish, a zone of prosperity and not a zone of insecurity. These are steps which will lead to true political integration, ridding ourselves of any threat from one state to another. That is an accumulation of what we are thinking of putting in place for our exit from ECOWAS. It is not dramatic or chaotic. There will be no chaos. The countries of the Sahel Alliance will be prosperous, inshallah, and this is inevitable. Okay, Mr. President, after ECOWAS, Nigerians are increasingly wondering about the interest of our remaining within the East African Economic and Monetary Union, WIMO, an organization which has harshly sanctioned our state. We will soon get out of this organization. Also, we will finally have our own currency, which is long awaited by our people. Mr. President, everything has its time. I said our state had to come out at 89. That time, the last Sultan of Niger was in decline. We went through other stages, and we were in the Sultan phase at the time when the French were making their revolution. The empire of Songhai, known through the dynasty, Soni dynasty, the Zaskaya dynasty, has ceased to exist as an empire. Prosperous in 1591, the Sultan of Bonu had ceased to exist as an influential sultan which covered almost the entire territory today called Niger. Around 1774. It is not yet the French Revolution. So, we know the history. We are not illiterate. Niger have decided in complete sovereignty to link alliance according to its interests and the interests of the Nigerian people, of the people of the AES, in a global manner. And for that, no one will tell us to whom we must go or not. Our orientation will only respect the national interests, the interests of the people, and not the will of a master who is supposed master. Niger will establish towards who we should go or not. Our interests and our interests are part of the solution to our exit from ECOWAS, because our interests have ceased to be taken into account within ECOWAS. We have left ECOWAS. We will be ready to establish relations with any country which respects our sovereignty, our independence, which is no longer theoretical, which is only on paper. A relationship, a cooperation of interest between states, but with respect, mutual, contrary to what the French want to impose on us. And imagine, in August 2023, to give you an idea of the contempt that France or the French authority have for Niger. In August 2023, when we were in the most tense moments, a country of the European Union had proposed by visionary reference of the member countries of this union an end to the crisis with Niger, an appeasement with Niger, and proposed to go towards Niger instead of settling into a situation in a conflicting position. To go towards Niger, the authorities of Niger, the new authorities, well, do try to negotiate. You know what Macron replied? No to the authorities of this country. Africa, wake up. Africa, rise up. Africa without borders. And break the chain of new colonialism. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.